Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, obviously, the Commanders had a dramatic win that the mob has christened the Bear Trap. I'm running with that. I did hear another dope one, the Washington Walk-Off. Someone left that in the comment section. That was pretty dope, too. I would go with either one of those and be perfectly fine. But all of this, Hail Mary, Hail this, Maryland that, this, that, anything to do with Hail Mary or Miracle, I don't want any parts of. But we don't get to choose. Someone's going to, make this thing official, and then that's going to be what it's called, and we just got to deal with it. And hell, I might just call the shit the Bear Trap, or the Washington Walk-Off, whatever. Whatever the hell it's going to be called, it was magical. And it'll go down in Washington lore forever. And no one will ever forget where they were on the 27th of October at roughly 7:32, right? I think it was roughly around that time where the Hail Mary took place, somewhere in that general vicinity. At the end of the day, it was just one game, and it was just a Week 8 contest, and by no means was this a perfect performance. And as happy as I am that we won and that we were triumphant in the fashion that we were, and we're 6-2, and we still lead the NFC East, and we're the second best team in the conference, just a half game behind Detroit at 6-1, and we're 6-2, obviously, and we have the fourth best record in the entire NFL. And there's so many things that you could point to. The defense continuing to improve. The offense continues to be really, really good, even though we did not have our best performance third down-wise, scoring-wise, penalty-wise, etc. We still amassed almost 500 yards of total offense. So we're still doing the things that lend itself to being successful, because you don't expect us to have the amount of penalties that we had in the game. But those penalties did occur. And that did stunt the growth of this football team's success. And it did limit the amount of points that were scored. And it did put us in a position to have happen what ultimately did happen, which was the Bears take the lead late with a chance to win this game. And so while we're excited and while we're kind of basking in the glow of this start to the season and all of the good fortune that has essentially been, thrusted upon us, we can't lose sight of what today is. It's Monday. And you already know what Monday represents. It's Tell the Truth Monday. And that's what we do here on the Louie T Network. Okay? We tell the truth on Mondays. And hell yeah, I'm excited. But I also am a realist. And I understand that against better opponents who can actually score the ball, you don't win that game. Not going to beat many teams in this league with 18 points. Okay? Not going to do that. And while the defense stood up, and credit needs to be given to that defense, because without them, we don't win the game, 18 isn't good enough. And I don't want to put that type of onus, I don't want to put that type of stress or responsibility on this defense ever again. Now, I would love it if they were able to give us more of those types of performances, because most weeks we're going to put up the points that we normally do, and the points that they held Chicago to is going to be plenty enough, probably plenty enough to get us a blowout victory, right? But I don't expect that from the defense on a weekly basis, and neither should you. And hence, we got to get to the bottom of what was a roller coaster of emotions yesterday, due to the fact that we allowed a team that we felt like we were better than. We proved it out on the field. And luckily enough for us, the outcome also stated that, because we were this close from everything feeling like we were the better team, except the outcome and the scoreboard reflecting that. And that's where it matters most. We can sit here and talk till our face turns blue about being better, and the statistics can show that. But if the scoreboard doesn't reflect that, then who gives a shit at the end of the day, right? But luckily enough for us, The scoreboard did reflect that. But why was it even in that position? Let's talk about it. So we get to our keys. And if you're looking for my overall reaction and the day after, I did a day after reaction and I had a lot of interesting things to say. So if you haven't watched that video yet, do yourself a favor. There's some real spill going on that video. That's not going to take place here. This is a totally separate entity onto itself. You know what we do on the CNN. So with that said, let's jump into the keys to the game on both sides of the football and see how we fared in that department with the 18-15 victory over the Bears in week number 8. So offensively, first key is be you, do what you do, right? And that's just a different way of me saying we got to be who we are. And I've said that before. And that's going to be a common theme throughout the season is we got to make sure we stay true to our identity that we're forging on a weekly basis. And for the most part, I thought we did that. Third downs were an issue for us offensively. We were not as efficient offensively. Some of that had to do with the penalties. Some of that was a lack of execution, drop passes, et cetera, et cetera. And some of it, you have to credit the Bears defense. They made plays. They were disciplined. They were where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there. And Jaden couldn't always get out and make things happen, but he did have a number of, opportunities with his legs that he did take advantage of. And Jaden was banged up and he played through injury in this game and still gave a Herculean effort and put up some big time numbers, both on the air, ground and through the air. So, we had the run pass ratio right where it needed to be. Time of possession was really good until the fourth quarter. And so I felt like we did a lot of good things, but it was masked by a fourth quarter that I thought was very stagnant for the home team. And so I gave us a half point here because the third downs weren't good and the time of possession was way too close for comfort. And a lot of that was skewed in the fourth quarter. We were dominating this game for the first 3 quarters, and the fourth quarter happened and things kind of started to go sideways. And obviously, one play changed all of that, but it doesn't change the fact that we didn't remain resilient the entire game consistently, but we remained resilient nonetheless, right? I think fatigue caught up with us in the fourth quarter, to be honest with you, but half point for B, you do what you do. Protect the quarterback in the Duke. Full point here. Jaden was rather protected well in the pocket in this game. He took a couple of shots, throwing the football, getting out of the pocket, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, I think he came away no worse for the wear, right? Sore, absolutely, as DQ talked about. But he protected the football as he most weeks does. And no one fumbled the ball. We did have one fumble. Jeremy McNichols, big shout out to him. I think a lot of you probably forgot about that play, but OZ coughed it up, coughed it up on the first punt return. And luckily enough for us, Jeremy McNichols was Johnny on the spot to recover that fumble to keep possession. And so those little plays show up, and a lot of people don't talk about them, but you definitely want to make sure that you show some love to those who find a way to help you maintain possession. We've had some big fumble recoveries this year. I don't know if there's a bigger one than the fumble recovery by Nick Allegretti against the Cincinnati Bengals, but we've had some big recoveries this year. That one was massive on that final drive that put the game away, essentially. And then we had the recovery, obviously, by OZ on the fumble by Austin Eckler, right? Got a lot of notoriety for the hustle on that play. And then you had Jeremy McNichols with the fumble recovery. So we've done a really good job protecting the football, and it's a team effort to do that. And big ups to Jeremy McNichols and the offensive line and Jaden Daniels and everyone for protecting the football. Everybody that touched it in the game. Great job. So full point there. Score in the red zone. I said touchdowns. And I said we needed 3 total touchdowns in this game, none of which happened, obviously. So let's talk about it. Like, you can't run from it. Let's talk about it. This is the second game this season at home, and we've now gone through the season, 8 games, 4 on the road, where the Commanders are 2-2, and 4 at home, where the Commanders are now a sparkling, undefeated 4-0. And in 2 of those 4 wins at home, the Commanders are a combined 0 of 9 in the red zone. Last week against Carolina was our best week in the red zone at home, and we were still 3 of 6. That's 50%. We were 2 of 5 against the Cleveland Browns. And so when you put that all together, it's not good. No bueno. And I talked about needing to be successful in the red zone, specifically at home. It's night and day, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when we're on the road. It feels like we can do no wrong on the road. The focus is locked in. It's us against the world. And, you know, the focus is laser-like on the road. We come home, and it feels like we're lackadaisical. And I'm not saying that that's the case. It just feels that way because of the outcome. You know, 2 of our lowest scoring outputs have been at home this season. One against the Giants, and this game here against the Bears was the lowest output of the season. And both can be traced back to penalties in the red zone. Drop passes always also hurt us in this game, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about scoring in the red zone, and those penalties were the biggest hindrance to that taking place, and you just can't have it. And again, it's not something that has been an issue every week, but this has reared its ugly head with this team this season, you know, before. And so this is something that they have to get better at. And they're avoidable offenses a lot of times. These aren't, like DQ said, these aren't combative penalties. Those are the ones that suck, but you understand, right? You understand the holding penalty, the hands to the face. You don't want it, but those things happen, right? You can avoid false starts. Trent Scott had 2 of them. That is unacceptable. You can avoid being an illegal man downfield. Cosme was not even a part of the play, and he was down the field. That's a screen to the outside on the perimeter. You're an interior offensive lineman. You're not pulling on this play. You're not getting out in front of this thing. Why are you going down the field? There is nothing that you're going to do to impact this play when OZ is getting outside and around the corner on a jet sweep. So I'm at a loss as to why you're getting up the field blocking anybody, right? And that happened to us multiple times. A De'Ami Brown wide receiver screen was erased due to a illegal man downfield. That would have put us 1st and goal inside the 5. We had too many mistakes to do the things that we wanted to do. And this game didn't have to be as close as it ultimately was. Similar to the Giants game, and I talked about that yesterday. This was exactly like the Giants game, a game that had no business being as close as it was, but because we made self-inflicted mistakes, we allowed an opponent to hang around that had no business hanging around. And while you can take solace in knowing that we still won, just like the Giants game, despite making all of these mistakes, you can't keep doing that and expecting to win. That is a recipe for disaster. We have to nip that in the bud now before it becomes a problem in a pivotal game down the stretch of the season against, say, a Dallas or Philadelphia or an Atlanta. Take care of it now. Figure that out and be better. Obviously, we got no points there. And then the last key offensively was out physical the Bears. I really felt like we did that. I thought our pass protection was pretty good all day long. Jaden Daniels had enough time to operate within the confines of the pocket. When things did break down, he did a really good job of extending the play, making things happen with his legs like we're accustomed to seeing him do. I thought we ran the ball adequately. I thought the runs got less and less effective as the game wore on. And I think the lack of Jaden Daniels, involvement in the run game as a runner really hindered the run game and the creativity of the run game, which it's fine, right? We didn't want to put him in harm's way with called runs, and we didn't want him pulling the ball on read options. That wasn't smart, right? So you wanted to stay away from those types of runs. If you watch the game, you'll notice he was under center quite a bit because they were taking away a lot of that element of, hey, zone read or read option, pull it out and take off with it if it's there. We didn't even want to put him in that position where he had to make that decision. Just give it to the running back and get out of the way, right? That's the type of day that it was. And it affected the run game, right? It definitely affected the run game. But even still, we still rushed for a bunch of yards, right? And we still stayed true to running the football. It just wasn't as effective in the second half. A lot more effective in the first half when we were really moving the football and converting on third downs. And then I thought we got after them. Now, we didn't stop the run effectively enough in the second half. I thought in the first half we did a really good job of bottling up the run. As the game wore on, we got sloppier and sloppier in the run game, and our run fits and our tackling and some of the angles that we took. And that was problematic, but we were very physical in terms of getting after Caleb Williams, kind of manhandling their offensive line. And as the game wore on, as I mentioned, because we didn't sustain offense, the defense was out there a ton. And next thing you know, we had some issues getting to Caleb, getting off the field on third downs. But for the most part, I thought we were more physical than they were. We were the more physical football team. And I think ultimately that helped us prevail. So we got a point there. You go to the defensive keys to the game. You start with limit the run and screen game. Half a point there. Obviously, the run game killed us, especially the big, 61 yarder, I think, that was had by DeAndre Swift. He's a Commanders killer. He's a Washington killer. Everywhere he goes, carnage follows when it comes to us. Sick of him. I'm glad we don't have to see him again. The screen game was a non-factor. They didn't hurt us at all in the screen game whatsoever. So, which was surprising because they're a very big screen team. They tried the screens early, they did not work. Caleb, bailed on one, I think, way too early. But at the end of the day, the screen game was null and void. But the run game was a problem, and so half a point there for that defensive key. The next one, force third and longs and keep Caleb bottled up. This is also a half point. Clearly, we did not keep Caleb bottled up. He made some big plays with his legs. We knew that was a part of his arsenal. We knew that you were going to have to you're going to have to keep contained, and you're going to have to be disciplined in the way you approach him. He's going to try to suck you in so that he can out leverage you and get to the outside and extend. And too often we allowed him to get away, whether he was running backwards, whether he was running sideways. It didn't matter. He found ways to dodge 3 and 4 different defenders and mosey his way up the field for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 yards at a time. And that was really frustrating. The one at the end to Keenan Allen was particularly frustrating because if you're Dorrance Armstrong, you got one job to do, and that's to not get out leveraged. Stay outside, keep contained, spill him back inside, or make him throw it away. You cannot get sucked inside and allow him outside of you. And now the guys that are coming in pursuit from the backside have to run even further to try to catch him, and they're not. And then he found Keenan Allen for a wide open catch and run. That would have brought up a 3rd and 5 had you made him throw it away. And who knows if they convert that or not. They were awful on third downs. And so you try your hand at that 3rd and 5, but got to be more disciplined. We weren't when it came to Caleb in this game. Not good enough for my liking, but we forced a ton of 3rd and longs. They were living in 3rd and longs for much of this game, which is why the 3rd down percentage was just god awful for them. And so we took care of half of that equation, but you would have loved to have seen us be a little bit more disciplined when rushing Caleb. We would have had a lot more sacks had they been able to do a better job of corralling him. Next defensive key, limit the explosives and communicate. I thought the communication was fantastic. I really enjoyed watching guys communicate pre-snap when they would have shifts and motions. They were, especially the corners. I thought Mikey did a tremendous job of communicating to everyone because that's his job. And making sure, and I saw Noah Igbenogany doing the same thing after the Baltimore game where the communication was a little off. I would see guys turn to the other corner and communicate. Those two get on the same page. Bobby Wagner was doing a great job of communicating with guys. I just thought a lot of communication out there, and I think that helps limit the confusion and the big plays being given up and things of that nature. Yeah, we gave up the one explosive run. But really, that was the lone explosive play. There were a couple of plays that you could theoretically count as explosive. The play I just talked about, that in reference where Caleb got out of the pocket, found Keenan Allen, and he was able to run up the field. You had the DJ Moore play that got him down inside the 10-yard line. So you could count those as explosives. But the one real big explosive, those I baked into the game plan, right? Those were expected plays. You expected them to have a 20 or 25-yard gain or two throughout the course of the game. Those are baked in. What I wasn't accounting for and what I wasn't looking to give up was anything over 40 yards in this game. And that's what I was really talking about when I talked about limit the explosives, those dynamic field changing plays that eat up, a third or a half of the field. And that 61-yard run, that's 2/3 of the football field. You just gave up on one play, and that can't happen, right? So that was the only one, though. And I said limit. I didn't say no explosives. I knew we were going to give up one or two. They did limit the explosives, and that gave us a big chance to win the game. So full point there. And then the last one, ball is life. Win special teams. And the ball was life. We created 2 turnovers. One will officially go in the stat book as a turnover with the fumble forced down by the goal line, even though we technically didn't force it. We recovered it, but we'll take it any way we can get it. But really, the real story here is we didn't win special teams. Juice, I count that as a turnover. That stop on 4th down when they threw that swing pass out to that hitch essentially out to DJ Moore and said, "Hey, go get this 1st down." And Juice was like, "Nah, bro, not today." And then Oos came and cleaned him up to ensure that he didn't get the 1st down. That was big. That's as good as forcing a fumble. That's as good as a deflection and an interception. We took over at the Bears' 38-yard line, something along those lines. You need to capitalize off of that. It's another one of those situations where you just feel sick to your stomach, because if they go be ballsy like that and they go for it and they don't get it and you take over in plus territory, that needs to be a touchdown. You have to make teams pay for making reckless decisions, right? Impulsive and in the moment decisions. Oh, it's just a yard. We're so close. Let's go for it. But not taking into consideration where they are on the field. Make them pay for that shit. Make them think twice about doing that again. And we didn't make them pay, right? But I didn't think we won special teams. I actually thought we got dominated on special teams, and that might have been the first time this season I walked away from a game saying, "Wow, we got our ass whooped on special teams." Their punter is extravagant. Tory Taylor is the truth. And he was pinning our ass all day long. And then he put the cherry on top at the end with a coffin corner kick that was out of bounds at the 5-yard line. We played a vast majority of the second half pinned up and deep in our own damn territory because Tory Taylor was an animal. There were punts that he had deep in his own territory, flipped the field position, and OZ's catching the bitch at his own 15 and returning it out for 12 yards to the 27. But you're like, bro, he kicked that from his own 13-yard line. What the hell is going on right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, he was on another level, and they tackled well. We missed a field goal. I thought we gave up too much on the kickoff returns. That is not like us. For starters, I think there was either 1 or 2 touchbacks. We don't do that. You got to return everything against us. Ain't no free lunch. You don't get it at the 30. You got to run it to the 30. And normally we don't get that up when we kick it to the 1 and you got to return it. We normally tackling your ass at the 22, the 25. They were getting to the 30 consistently, whether it was a touchback or they ran it out. And I was like, that ain't how we operate, man. So this was not a great special teams performance by any stretch of the imagination. It wasn't terrible, but I felt like the Bears beat us at our game. They beat us at our game. Missed field goal, down punts inside, multiple down punts inside the 10-yard line. This was the most backed up in the worst field position game we've had all season long. We did not win the field position battle at all in this game. And you got to credit them for that. So half a point there because we did have the ball be life. The ball was life. The ball is life. So when you total it all up, 2.5 on the offensive side and 2.5 on the defensive side, that's a grand total of 5 points out of 8 possible. Normally, you're pushing your luck with 5 points. You're usually not going to win the game doing that. You can be close, but you usually don't win with 5 points. Really surprised that we were able to get it done. And I mean, we needed a Hail Mary, right? I mean, I think the points would have been probably the same had we just gotten a stop at the end and won this thing 12-7. Would have been pretty much largely the same. And the outcome would have still been the same. A win just would have looked a little bit different. This is kind of how the game went, and we just got to be better. And I know we can be and we will be. It's just one of those games, and they happen. We got to try to reduce the amount of times that they do happen, though. That's the second time it's happened this season. We've been fortunate the first 2 times, might not be so lucky the third, right? Third time might not be the charm. So let's not let it be a third time. So now we transition to in other news, where we heard from head coach Dan Quinn, and he had his victory / Tell the Truth Monday presser. We'll talk about what he had to say. But before we do that, let's take a look at the snap counts for Week 8 versus the Chicago Bears, starting with the offensive side of the football. As you can see, offensive line was largely intact until the injury, to Cornelius Lucas. There were 74 total snaps in this game, and everybody played all 74 with the exception of Wiley and Lucas. Wiley left for that one play, and we were nervous. It was crazy because in the mob, we were discussing replacements. At that time, Cornelius Lucas was still at left tackle, so we weren't having that discussion. But Wiley had to come out for one play. It was weird. Did you see the play he got injured on? I don't know what the hell happened, but he was just standing up and he was fine. And then the next minute, he just fell onto the ground. Like, it was weird looking. Like he did it on purpose. Maybe he did. Maybe he had something wrong with his eye and he wanted them to stop the game or something because it was weird how he just fell down. He was fine 1 second and then he just fell down. But he obviously came back, and boy, did we need him, because later on, we didn't know that at the time, but Cornelius Lucas was going to get injured, and we were going to have to see a ton of Trent Scott, a lot more than any of us should be comfortable with. But Jaden played all 74 snaps coming off of the rib. Noah Brown played 60. It's the first time any Commanders receiver has played more snaps than Terry McLaurin in any given game this season. Zach Ertz had 56. I think that's a season high for him as well. McLaurin had 53 snaps. Cornelius Lucas had 46 before exiting the game with a undisclosed injury. We still don't actually know what is wrong with Cole Luke. Eckler had 42 snaps. Brian Robinson Jr. had 35. That number is a bit odd for some. I know there were a lot of people in the mob looking for more Brian Robinson touches in the second half. Those touches were going to Eckler and Jeremy McNichols, and it led people to wonder if something was wrong with B-Rob. No, they just, weren't playing him at that time. So something to keep a mental note of. And it was also, good to try to reduce the amount of times he's on the field because he's still not 100%. Trent Scott, 30 snaps, as I mentioned already. Olamide Zaccheaus, 26. John Bates, 25. Luke McCaffrey, 25. De'Ami Brown, 24. Ben Sinnott, 16. Jeremy McNichols, 5. And Michael Dieter, 2. So nothing really above and beyond the expected or obvious as we transition to the defensive side, where there were 63 total snaps in the game. And as you can see, Bobby and Frankie, your linebackers essentially on the field for all 63 snaps. Benjamin St. Juste had the second most in terms of snap count with 62. So he played all but 1 snap. Chen had 60 snaps. Mike Sainristil, 59. Noah Igbenogany, 56. Quan Martin, 53. Payne, Armstrong, both played over 70% of the snaps. Payne with 78%. And Armstrong coming back from the rib injury played a healthy and solid 73% of the snaps at 46. Cleveland Farrell played 36 snaps. Johnny Newton, who had his best game of his young NFL career, had 35 snaps. Dante Fowler Jr., after his very disruptive week, he kind of went back to his situational pass rusher role. Only played in 28 of the 63 snaps. I wonder if he needs more. I wonder. He wasn't as impactful yesterday as he had been. Fedarian, 23 snaps. Percy Butler, 22 snaps. Sheldon Day, 14 snaps. Jalen Holmes, I thought he was actually pretty impressive in this game. He had 11. Manuel Forbes, F.A. Obata both had 6. And Michael Walker had 1. Is there a name that is noticeably absent from this list? I'll give you a second to think about it. Time's up. I don't see Jordan McGee's name here anywhere. And look, defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. said that they were going to take their time trying to integrate him, understanding that he's a little bit behind and the guys in there are starting to play better, and you don't want to disrupt that by bringing a new piece into the fold. He said they want him out there, but they got to find a way to get him out there smartly and in a situation where he can gain some confidence and know what he's doing. And they don't want that to happen at the expense of the rest of the defense either. So something else to keep in consideration. So I wonder if we'll see him finally hit the field next week when this Commander team takes on the G-Men. Anyway, I digress. So let's talk about what DQ had to say, and then we will get out of here. So DQ talked for over 21 minutes today. Obviously, he talked about the Hail Mary play from Sunday's crazy, wild ending and victory. He also talked about, excuse me, a number of things that the Commanders need to clean up. And he talked about this not being one of the better tackling games, and it wasn't. But it wasn't lousy. We've seen shoddy tackling this season. This wasn't that. But it wasn't the standard that we had set the last couple of weeks. And he said, my job as the head coach is to set the standard and uphold it. Right. He talked about the Zach Ertz catch that was ruled incomplete. He got a clarification from the league. He didn't necessarily love it, and he said, I don't regret challenging it. It felt like the right time to challenge, and that was worth it. We needed a score. I don't disagree with any of that. I thought it was a good challenge because I thought he caught the football, and I still think that was a catch, but they said otherwise. He talked about Johnny Newton's performance. He said he was really impressed with Newton. This was what they were looking for from him. He's finally healthy, and he's showing it, and he felt like he really took advantage of the opportunity that he had in the game on Sunday. He talked about Bobby Wagner's importance and how he thought Bobby had a really good showing out there. Talked about the hustle of Nick Allegretti and how he blocked, a guy on the Jaden Hail Mary at the end, and just talked about that's the grit and toughness and tenacity that made him a captain for that particular game. He, talked about Jaden Daniels' ribs and how he is sore today, but he's no worse for the wear. He's no different than a lot of the players that were sore on Monday. I'll have a better, understanding of where we are and how he's feeling on Wednesday. But he dealt with some injuries, right? He dealt with some discomfort. Jaden even confirmed that after the game. He's like, "No, my shit was hurting." We saw him grab that rib a couple times and grimace, but he's like he said at its post game presser, I wasn't coming out of that game. So he gutted it out, and DQ talked about that and his leadership qualities and how his teammates respect him. It's tough as a rookie to command the type of respect that Jaden Daniels has, already garnered amongst his peers and his teammates. You heard Noah Brown after the game say, we always think we got a shot with 5. I'm so glad he's our quarterback. Like, I wouldn't want to be playing with anybody else. And I think that's the sentiment to a man on this team is 5's like that. And we're glad he's on our side because he's hell to deal with. And, DQ kind of spoke to that. He talked about the whole like Hail Mary thing and how fun it's been to kind of see it from different angles. I've enjoyed that as well. Whether you're watching the Bears sideline or you're watching our sideline or you're watching DQ, embrace people, go crazy, throw the headset off and all that stuff. And, you're watching the players and, guys that are, practice squad celebrating off on the side with Noah Brown, and you're seeing Terry run around and hug everybody. And you see Emmanuel Forbes helping two Bears players to their feet because they're devastated, and just so much going on the field at that time. And DQ kind of talked about it was fun to kind of check it out from all these different vantage points. Of course, if you're going to bring that up, you got to talk about the Tyreek Stevenson situation. And he said that's unfortunate for the young man. You got to play until it's all zeros on the scoreboard. But that said, he's super talented, and it could be a teaching tool, which I think it ultimately will be, because they're definitely going to address that in the film study. But he talked about just this opportunity overall. He talked about what this win and this season and the start to the season has meant to this area. And then he did the Joe Gibbs thing. I think he is killing it in the Gibbs. I call it the Gibbs department. I think he is killing it in the Gibbs department. From the shirt that he wore with the old logo on it, to thanking the fans every chance that he gets, to now at this press conference talking about how loud the fans were and how they brought the juice and how they caused those, which they did cause those two false starts on that one possession. And he said, we're starting to morph this thing into a place that you don't want to have to come and play. And we need all of y'all out here in your support of the team, which they're getting clearly. And he said, you're hoping that 20, 25 years from now, the place is still rocking, and you can tell yourself, I remember where I was when this happened back in 2024. And he said, a lot of times when a team gets down like that at home at the very end, fans start to leave. They start, I got to go beat the traffic, especially if you're in the DMV. I got to beat the traffic. Let's just get out of here. And he said fans didn't do that on Sunday. There were some. I've had people tell me, man, I left the stadium. I didn't even know until blank, blank, dot, 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 dot. But he said most people stayed, and they were loud and they were proud, and this team gave them something to cheer about. He said, the one thing I always want to make sure I do is I want to make sure that you, as members of the media, fans out there, every time they see us play, they know that we're bringing it, and that we're not gonna, we're gonna leave it all out on the field. And he talked about that, and he felt like they did that. They emptied the tank. And he talked about the mistakes. And that's the last thing I really want to harp on is they asked him, are you still kind of on cloud nine, or, have you transitioned to Tell the Truth Monday? And he's like, that's why it's called Tell the Truth Monday. We got to stay consistent. We were hugging anybody within a, 1 inch radius of one another last night. He's like, we were just hugging dudes. It was a great vibe. But today it's back to business, remove that from the memory bank, and now prepare for the Giants the second time around. And so he said, that's how we keep a normal work week, is we get right back after it. So leave the celebrating to us, leave the trash talking and all of that stuff to us. Y'all get back to work and get to the business of trying to sweep the New York Giants. And he pretty much said that, like, that's how we wired around here. Celebrated last night, and now it's on to the next, on to the next one. And so you gotta love it. And he talked about all of the mistakes that were made in this game, and he said there were some uncharacteristic drops. He pointed out Austin Eckler's drop in the red zone on the first possession. Obviously Noah Brown had a couple. Then he had the big play. He talked about the penalties. Obviously there were a bunch of penalties, and he said, look, that was really reminiscent of the first game, or the second game, excuse me, of the season against the Giants way back when we really hurt ourselves with penalties and it cost us, and we can't do that. And he talked about those combative penalties versus those avoidable penalties. And he's like, these are the ones that drive you crazy and keep you up at night, because these are avoidable. And so we got to be better in that department. But he talked about the defense and how well they played and how they kept them in the game. I was surprised no one asked him about the decision to not go for it, even though I think it was the right one. I think that's why nobody brought it up, because are you really asking me why I didn't go for it from my own 14-yard line? Because if that's what you're doing, then we really don't have anything to talk about. So I think that's why the media kind of stayed away from that, because whether you like it or not, you're at your own 14. You're up 5, 12-7. You can't go for that, even if you know you're going to get it, because anything can happen. You could fumble the snap, and now they're at your 13-yard line, and all they need is a touchdown to take the lead. So no one asked him about that, and I think part of the reason why is because it was kind of common sense. He talked about, his reaction to the Hail Mary and kind of seeing it, how excited he was, but he also acknowledged we got a lot of shit to clean up. We got a lot of shit to clean up, and we got to get to work, because that one almost got away from us. But it also shows just how resilient of a team we are, and how we'll never quit. And we have that never say die attitude, and that bodes well for you. If you're able to really execute that, that bodes really well for you. So a lot of good taken from this game, but still a few things that they gotta iron out. And he was pretty adamant, we're gonna get those things corrected, because that's not the kind of football we want to play. We want to score points. And trust me when I tell you, I believe every single word of that. So that was DQ. And that's gonna do it for your man Louie T here on CNN. I'm lining up a special show for you guys tomorrow night in commemoration of that whole entire ordeal that was yesterday. It was such a crazy day. It's unlike any other we've seen in this franchise's history, at least in my lifetime. And so I got a crazy lineup for you guys tomorrow, hopefully. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for that. If I can get everything situated the way that I want to, we're going to have some fun with that. But looking forward to chopping it up with you guys tonight for the Steelers-Giants game. And then tomorrow we'll have the Louie T Network podcast. And then hopefully some of those shows that I have lined up for you. Obviously, we'll have CNN again. And then hopefully we'll have some other shows to get to tomorrow as well. But before we turn our attention to the Giants on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, myself and Bad Dog are supposed to be getting it on and meeting up to go head-to-head talking about this Week 9 matchup. But let's see what the Giants do tonight first, and then we can have that discussion a little bit later on in the week. But a lot going on. But you know what else is going on? The Commanders in first place. Celebrate! Your Washington Commanders still hold first place after 8 weeks of football. Who knew? Who knew? Man, it feels good. Feels good. I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. 6-2. How sweet it is. We got so much more work to do, though. We got so much work to do. But I like the way this feels. I want to feel this again next week, and the week after that, 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 and the week after that. You see where I'm going with this. Let's keep it going. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, you guys take care. God bless. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's got